You guys are good.
All right. Thanks, Caitlin. Um, Welcome everyone to our February Food Policy Council Leadership Team meeting. Thanks everyone for being here this morning. Yeah, just pulled my screen up so we can walk through the agenda. Have welcome and introductions, public comment, approval of January meeting minutes, and then we'll go through our working group updates. Check back in on the new committee poll that we had talked about last time. Talk about general membership meeting upcoming, and then we'll see how much of these discussion topics we have to get into. Just a few things that kind of have come up recently that I was like, oh, this would be good to to discuss at the leadership team. Let folks know about some things that are happening. So yeah, that's what's in store for this morning. I don't think we need to keep this up here. I'll put the link in the chat in case people want to look at it. But um, for our intros this morning, my icebreaker question is about names. If there's a story behind your name, your first name or your middle name, last name, whatever, any part of your name you want to share, or if there isn't a story that is there that you want to share, if you have a story about your, I don't know, pets or kids' names or anything name related you want to share this morning. I'll kick us off. I can say my name, Samuel, is from my great grandfather. My mom's dad's dad was named Samuel, and I learned a few years ago that he married his cousin, which made me feel like a little weird. I guess, I don't know, maybe it was more normal at that time, but that was, I don't know, that's what I learned about my namesake. So that's my fun fact there. Um, does anyone want to? I feel like I could call on someone. We could do a popcorn, but I don't know. It's a lot to.
Yeah,
Anyone want to volunteer?
I'll go.
Thanks, Christy.
I'm Christy Scott. I'm with Office on Aging. My name story is that my parents always said that they never wanted to name me after anybody in the family because they didn't want to favor anybody. So when my mom was in the hospital giving birth to me, the luggage had Christy on it. Like that was the label on the luggage. So I guess I was named after the luggage. Then they forgot about an aunt, Christina. And so the Aunt Christina always thought I was named after her. So my parents kind of messed up there, but that's okay.
Wait, Christy, can I go next? Because I was also a spur of the moment hospital name. So, hi, everyone. I'm Bree Berry, Assistant Professor of Environment and Sustainability at Ursinus College. My full name is Brianne Berry. Well, it was Brianne Wallman when I was born. Anyway, that doesn't matter. My first name, Brianne, though, my parents thought I was going to be a boy. Like they didn't know anything about me till I was born, and they were going to name me Zane. They were like all set. I don't know why they were all in on Zane, but they were. And when I was born, they were like, "Oh no, we don't have another name." And the nurse said, "I've always liked the name Brianne," and so the nurse named me. That's all. Someone else can jump in now. So yay, hospital names, Christy.
So my name story is a little bit unusual. My parents were 43 when they had me, and they didn't know that they were going to have another kid. So they made an agreement that if I was a girl, I would get my mother's last name, and my father would pick my first name, and if I was a boy, vice versa. So, because my father is such an awesome feminist, I actually have my mother's last name, and I have my father's last name as my middle name. Sometimes I go by both my middle and my last name, but anyways, I feel really lucky to have such a feminist father.
That's cool. Now, what's your middle name?
Well, I have two middle names because I think they had a lot of explaining to do. Rose and McKelvey are my two middle names.
I have a similar story to Shannon's. Not that my parents were 43, but that my hyphenated last name, you know, trendier now than it used to be. But I have had this hyphenated last name since I was born. And the Ann and the Kara part, Kara's my middle name, come later. But my mom did not want to give up her last name when she got married to my dad. And their solution to this was that my mom was Levitt, my dad was Gruberger. My dad legally changed his last name to Levitt Gruberger. And then my mom took his name and then everyone followed as Levitt Gruberger. Which in retrospect, I mean, like a decent feminist leaning decision then, but it is a really long last name. So my first and middle names are short to compensate for that. And like Sam, I am named after a great grandparent, and Anna is where the Ann comes from. And my other great grandmother was named Celia, and that's where Kara comes from.
Let's see. I will actually go next because you are the only other person who I've ever heard that has done the exact same thing that my in-laws did. So my husband's last name is Beam, Beam hyphen Ward. And it is because his parents did the same thing. They took their two last names, Beam and Ward, which admittedly are shorter than yours, and hyphenated them. And this works really well with women, I guess. However, when my husband and I got married, I was like, there is no way I'm taking on a hyphenated name that isn't even related to my name at all. So I kept Melia as my which is my maiden name, and my daughter now has Beamward as her last name. And I am constantly like, yeah, it's a wonderful feminist story, but it like failed when it came to the next generation.
Yeah, you just have to draw the lines somewhere. I get it.
We actually played with ways to like smush all the names together and just create another new name altogether.
Oh my gosh, I tried that too. I was so close to being a wary. I was Waltman, and I was trying to get my husband to be wary with me, and he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I got a few folks left: Rachel, Carla, Juliana, Vernon. If anyone wants to share any name stories, no pressure. Also,
Sure,
if you just want to pass, that's fine.
sure. I'll share it. No, unfortunate. Probably the first feminist in my family. But my parents are very Catholic, and there's a story about Rachel and Jacob. It's a little bit depressing because he has to wait like 14 years to marry her. So, anyway, I guess it's supposed to represent hard work and being someone worth waiting 14 years for. So, that's me.
I don't have an exciting name story. I will say, when I got married, I was glad to drop my maiden name because it was so common. So my maiden name is Smith. There was just there's a lot of Carla Smiths, a lot. So to go from Smith to Clanigan was a big deal for me.
I
So,
like your name though, Carla. It flows. Carla Clanigan. I like it.
It ends up being Clara I can't even say it. Clara Callahan. And I
Oh,
don't know why, but that's usually what I get when people say my name. I'm like, nope, it's not Clara, it's Carla. But I think it's because now it's Clanigan.
yeah.
But I answer to both at this point, Clara or Carla.
so, everyone, this is Vernon, and I was born and reared in central Mississippi. And my name is Vernon Ross Jr. I'm named after my father. I do not have a middle initial or middle name. But one thing of interest about the name Vernon. Once I got in school and began to learn more about the community, I learned that Vernon is a female name in the white community and a male name in the Black community. So in my community, there were several white women with the name of Vernon. And it still holds today that in Mississippi, parents will name their children, their girls, Vernon. In the Black community, Vernon is for men, and it's quite interesting. So I did ask my parents, why'd y'all name me Vernon? And they said, because your father's name is Vernon. And I'm like, yeah, but there's a lady at school, she's a teacher, and her first name is Vernon. So
I mean, that's interesting. That is not I'm learning something new here this morning. Thank you. Thanks for
Vernon is a name for women in the South.
Yeah, interesting. All right, Juliana, do you want to round us out here?
Sure. Well, I have a lot of stories with name, but I'm gonna go with my son's name, my second son. I've always loved the name Benjamin, Ben. I've always thought like, oh, if I have a son, I'm gonna name him Ben. So when I was pregnant with my first son, and my husband is a Thomas Joseph Lees the fifth, so I could not break the tradition. So my first son was Thomas Joseph Lees the sixth. And when I was pregnant with my second son, okay, and we found out he's a boy, all right, his name is gonna be Benjamin. Until the day he was born and we looked at his face. If anyone ever seen the movie, The Curious Story of Benjamin Button, that was my son. He was born, he looked like a little old man. So we decided like we cannot name him Benjamin. So we went with Leo. So he's a Leo. That's the story, why he's Leo.
Nice. That's great. Well, thanks everyone for sharing, kind of like more personal stories this morning, but all like really interesting. And had great stories to share. So thanks, appreciate it. All right, we will move along in our agenda. Next up, we have public comment. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us this morning. If you had any comment that you wanted to share with Food Policy Council team this morning, then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. I didn't have anything in particular, but I did just want to pop in and say hi to the team and kind of observe the conversation. I'm currently the CEO of CBS Food Program, working on combating childhood food insecurity in the greater Philadelphia region. We work with daycare schools, after school programs, summer camps, providing meals to kids. And we're trying to kind of grow our footprint into Montgomery County and Bucks County as we're moving to a new headquarters in Huntington Valley. So we're a Montgomery County-based organization, so just popping in to see what's going on. Say hi.
Sounds good. Well, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. My daycare that my son used to go to got food from you guys from CBS Food Program. So a little bit of familiarity with your work that way.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at our January meeting minutes. I'll share my screen with those up. So last time we were joined by some students from Ursinus College who shared their reflections on their experiential learning class focused around food justice. And yeah, we had our working group updates, a handful of other updates, a kind of discussion about the statewide convening, the Pennsylvania Food Policy Council meeting at the Farm Show, and reviewed the 2025 our communications report, communications data. Those are kind of the main discussion topics from last time. Anyone have any comments or edits to our January meeting minutes? All right, not seeing any. All those in favor of approving the January meeting minutes as is, do yeah, an actual hand raise or an emoji hand raise, whatever you prefer. All
My
right.
hand's raised.
Thanks, Carla. All right, I think we've got everyone there. Great, thank you. Okay, so then we can go into our working group updates for today. So first up, we have the Farmer Development Working Group. We had our mentorship event, our event about the Farmer Mentorship Program on Tuesday, just a few days ago. It was at Martha's Community Farm again, and it was great. We had, I think, just shy of 20 people who attended. There was a panel with a few different mentor-mentee pairs kind of talking about the role that, that mentorship, that relationship has played over the course of their career. Then we gave kind of a short presentation about kind of how we're thinking about, to this point, setting up and structuring the mentorship program. And then we went into breakout groups to get feedback from folks about, what aspects of that would work, what other kind of components of the program they would like to see. And yeah, it was really great participation and engagement. I think people just seemed excited to be kind of convened and to think about and to talk about kind of how to share information and knowledge and yeah, just have more of those kind of strengthen the relationships and connections kind of among the community there. So I think that there was a part of me that was hoping, we'd go into the meeting, we'd kind of share our like loose outline, and people would be like, this sounds great, let's tweak this or that, and then we can kind of roll this thing out. And it was clear that there's like there's going to be more. It was good feedback, constructive feedback, but kind of more questions, came away with more questions than answers, I guess. So we'll definitely go back to our working group and start working through some of those questions and get towards developing a timeline for that. But still a few kind of things to figure out. Rachel, do you have anything else you would add?
Yeah, that was like really well said. It was really exciting to, there's a lot of farmers in the room, and obviously as a farmer myself, it's like particularly just that's a group that we've been wanting to reach out to more. So yeah, just it was really inspiring to see. I think like part of, as Sam mentioned, the challenge is we have a little bit of a like scheduling sensitivity, because when the growing season comes for mostly, there's a lot of vegetable growers that we're going to be focusing on. The growing season, it's just tough to get a program off the ground, between probably June to August and September. So we're like working around knowing that chunk of time, it will be hard to launch during that time of the year, I think. So, but yeah, I'm feeling hopeful about it. So.
Yeah, we'll have to see whether it makes sense to try and get something together before then, or if it's something that we might have to wait till the fall to get started. But to be determined. Anyone have questions? Not seeing any. All right. Okay, so then, yeah, moving on to the next working group, we have our food security educational campaign. I am trying to remember the timing of this. I think, yeah, our last meeting was the one where we decided on a name for the campaign, which was exciting. It's Montco Hunger Stops Here. That's the name that we had landed on, with some input from our county comms team as well. So yeah, now we're kind of in the last meeting, we identified kind of some of the key pieces that we were going to start kind of building the campaign with. So our website, some social media content, some flyers, and some yard signs. So we had some volunteers during the last meeting who said they'd help out, drafting some of that initial content. So that'll be good at our next meeting. We'll be able to come back and look at some of those drafts, of just kind of a loose mock-up of what a flyer for this campaign, that we could distribute to libraries and community centers and have at pantries and other places to draw more attention around the issue. Yeah, so we'll have a mock-up of the flyer, a mock-up of yard signs, kind of loose sketch of some of the content that we want to have on the website, and some social media, ideas for social media content too. So yeah, that's at our next meeting. We'll be looking over that. And then I think also there were some other kind of bigger picture questions that came up about like evaluation, kind of how are we assessing the impact of the campaign and things a little bit about kind of resource distribution or reallocation. So if the campaign is really successful in some areas of the county, but not others, is that something that we want to kind of proactively think about? I guess two things. Like one is, do we just want to have kind of a system for redistributing that among, like, kind of Mon already has the interpantry food sharing, so can we kind of rely on that, or do we want to have something that is somehow like more centralized for where some of the volunteer or food or financial donations could go? So those are some of the questions that were still coming up that still need to be resolved. But yeah, that's kind of where that conversation is now. That's, again, when we meet next week, we'll be looking at some of the draft content and trying to figure out some of those other questions for the campaign. So I can't remember. That meeting feels like forever ago. So I don't remember Carla, Shannon, or if anyone else was at the meeting. If anyone else has updates or things from that working group that they wanted to share.
I don't have anything to add, Sam. To be honest with you, it was quite some time ago and I don't remember all the things that were discussed.
I don't have anything.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I guess it's the same interval as always, but somehow it feels like it was really a long time ago. Okay, so then next one we have network development. There should be an email going out next week formally announcing our resource guide. It's been a little bit, we've been meaning to get that out, but it should be going out next week. We talked about, I've been trying this, we talked kind of briefly at the end of the last meeting about like how to kind of align the newsletter and the resource guide. So I've been working on that a little bit, like populating everything that it just populating it directly into the Padlet, and then use that to inform the newsletter. So it's I've been adding a bunch of stuff. I've seen a handful of other people add some stuff too. There's a lot of content on there. I think we talked last in our network development working group meeting about after this is kind of shared, we'll have some time where we will want to assess kind of how it's going and if we need to kind of do more to promote it. But then we talked about a few other potential future projects for the group if we get to a place where we feel like the resource guide is kind of in good shape and doesn't need kind of continued attention. So Yeah, Rachel or Anne, anything else that you'd add from network development?
Just I hope, has everyone seen the resource guide? Or okay, cool. Cool. Because go put your stuff on there. That would be great. We obviously are very limited to what each of the, the three of us and the folks on our working group are aware of. So you all need to include your knowledge of the food system. And then, yeah, I think just a small update is our last working group. Jahan, one of the people on our working group, is excited about like bringing people together in a more informal way and sort of like hosting conversations. So we're kind of talking through exactly what that might look like, and just like what gathering people to talk would look like. So um, yeah, we'll keep you posted.
I forgot about that. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, it's okay. We're presenting it back to you next time. So
Like an in-person resource guide, basically.
yeah, just like and also kind of nerding out about the food system. I think seeing what people can bring topics that they want to talk about.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we'll have an update on that after our next meeting, kind of where that idea is going. Anyone have thoughts or questions about network development working group? All right. Well, then our last working group update is about our core community council. So we had our quarterly core community council meeting yesterday. It was at the Jenkintown Food Cupboard. I think a number of folks were either there in person or online. The bulk of the meeting was spent, we had done a survey, which Shannon and Mon helped to distribute to the pantry network, to assess kind of the impact of the lapse and SNAP benefits on the pantry system. So we were sharing back those survey results and then discussing kind of how we can use those to plan for future disruptions, future emergencies. So yeah, I thought it was a really great conversation. I have the presentation up here. I'm just gonna walk through a few of the quick highlights for the folks who were not there yesterday. And for the folks who were, apologies for the duplication here, but again, I'll be quick. We had 25 respondents to the survey. The majority of them were pantries, a few other types of entities who responded. Pretty good geographic coverage from throughout the county. This chart is showing the change in demand during and after the pause in benefits. So, the top line is how much the kind of average weekly number of individuals that a pantry was serving. And then we can see that the way that increased during that, I think it was about 2-week pause in benefits. And then we can see after, once those benefits were restored, the majority, significant majority of folks were still experiencing a pretty big increase in demand. Yeah, only 4 were kind of back to the same baseline. 2 were back kind of had lesser demand. But again, I think it was 18, as it says down here, had more demand. And as I'll go to the next chart here, which is kind of the same, but adding this row at the bottom to see what is the percentage change that that pantries experienced. And so for some, like the ones over here, 6.5%, 5.5%, some experience kind of relatively minor increases, but a good number had increases over 25%. And this is the increase from before to after. So this is kind of sustained demand that pantries are seeing. And one, trend that seemed to come out is, so these numbers now are listed in order of size of the pantry operation. So from smallest on the left to largest on the right. And so, this black line in the middle is pantries who serve over 200 people a week. And it seems like more of the pantries that are seeing a sustained increase are of that larger size. So, the kind of goal of all of this research and analysis is to be able to use this, again, as I mentioned, to plan for future disruptions. So, if we need to allocate resources, maybe we look to do that at some of the larger pantries that are experiencing, 57% increase in demand or 35% increase in demand, kind of sustained over time. Yeah, just a few other, it's good to see only 2 of the 25 folks who responded to the survey said they had to turn people away. And most people also said if the, SNAP labs continued for another 2 weeks, 21 of 25 said they still would not have to turn anyone away. So that was encouraging. And yeah, I'll send the slides out afterwards. There's more information here about kind of like what kind of changes did pantries make to respond to the demand? What kind of support did they see from their communities? What were the specific challenges that they saw? I think the kind of theme here was resource constraints. So whether that's lack of food, lack of space to store the amount of food that was needed, or lack of staff and volunteers, or just the strain on staff and volunteers. Those are some of the challenges. So we also have a few good recommendations for the county to think about in terms of future response. So again, I'll send these out, but wanted to share some of the highlights for the folks who weren't able to join the meeting yesterday. I think just to mention, kind of in terms of next steps, we've been working with the public health emergency preparedness team. They're the ones who helped do the survey and do the kind of data analysis. So we'll be working with them to kind of develop a formal report with some of those recommendations and things coming out of that. So yeah, that's again kind of the majority of the discussion from the core community council meeting yesterday. Yeah, I don't know, Shannon, or if you want to add anything else, and then again, Anne and Davey and Carla, I know you were all also there, I think, in person or online. So if you had any other thoughts or reflections from the meeting as well.
I think for me personally, it made me very hopeful that we can sort of get ahead of the curve and have a response to SNAP lapses planned that are not just like completely overwhelming and rushing, and just it's going to be intense if there's another SNAP lapse for sure. But I think having it be more coordinated and having sort of this expertise is really just going to be a really big game changer. So I'm very excited to sort of see how all of this comes together. I think also some folks shared some useful ideas about measuring data and the analysis of the data, thinking about the Thanksgiving bump. And Manira had resources to share with the network that we're going to follow up with her and then share out to everybody. So all in all, just I think very hopeful meeting.
Sam, I was just going to add, I didn't even know that the Office of Public Health had I don't even remember what they said their role was, like this emergency planning and analysis division, people who were thinking about these sorts of things. But I think that there is a need for the county not to just think about cuts to SNAP, but just cuts to the safety net in general, that there is this gap in our countywide response that we haven't really been thinking ahead for. So, if it's a cut to housing assistance, then that's going to affect people's ability to procure food too. But we're not thinking about it holistically, and I think that is something that we could be doing.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. That's a good point. And I feel like you've kind of raised that that point in different ways at other times. Um, yeah, Megan from the emergency preparedness team mentioned that they, I think it was just yesterday, we're starting a conversation with some of the Code Blue shelters about doing a similar resiliency kind of planning process with them. And so it seems like, yeah, there's an opportunity to, as you're saying, kind of engage more. I don't know if it's HHS leadership and county leadership, and think about okay, instead of doing this, report on the food security system and the shelter system, what's the kind of higher level thinking about, about all of those support networks together.
Yeah.
So I'll bring that back to Christina and see if she has ideas about it, and who else again within HHS leadership or other county leadership that could engage in that process and conversation. I see Bree and then Shannon with hands up.
Oh, Shannon, go first.
I have a question about what Anne's saying. I totally agree with you, Anne. I wonder who would we need to convene in order to sort of it seems like we would need to map out the policies and be like, all right, there's this level or this level or this level on housing, on heat, on food, and here's how they intersect. I think we could do that. I'm sure, we could figure out how to do that. And then who would we need to convene to sort of do planning collectively about that, but also sort of look at, is our image of how we think these things are going to intersect. Do we all agree that this is a valid image of the policy impacts, so that we can use it for planning?
I don't even know who we would convene. It's not, I don't know if it's a responsibility that falls to any one county department, but I feel like instead of, the money that the county is able to give is great. And I'm so glad that they have the money to allocate when these emergencies do arise. I feel like there's got to be a better plan for when this happens again, rather than people all rushing to do their individual thing to gather. I don't know. I think we can talk about this with the county commissioner policy folks and see what they think.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would say
know.
the same thing. I don't quite know who we would need to convene. I think we'd have to define what the first step is, defining what the I don't know if the problem or the scope or what the questions are that we would want to try and answer or discuss, and and then figure out, okay, based on that, who would we need to bring around the table. But yeah, I think it need to kind of define the question a little bit more clearly, and I'm not sure. Well, I'll say I feel like that's above my pay grade, or my position to be defining how the county should be thinking about that. But as I said, I think it's a good question to elevate and then see, yeah, what kind of again, whether it's, I don't, if it's, as Anne mentioned, kind of commissioner's office, the policy team, or if it's the HHS leadership, or kind of who within the county would want to either lead or just help steer the process a little bit to give it to help us have a little bit more to shape it a little bit more.
One word that comes to me is looking at people who are somehow strategically vulnerable, whether that is the intersection of poverty, which would be food and housing, but also people who are senior citizens, people with disabilities, children, especially those with intersecting identities among those, and probably a diversity lens for sure as well. That's what I would imagine, sort of looking at how those different pieces intersect, especially when it comes to life-saving care.
Right, right. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, Rachel, and then Bree, if you still had a comment you want to share.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw in like, is this worth sort of like developing a subcommittee here, or I don't know if working group is too broad, but it just seems like this is of interest, and yeah, I just wanted to throw that in. Should we start organizing in some smaller capacity, if not the full team of us?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, Anne, or or maybe Christy, your thoughts. Like my sense is like that's not a thing that would like the Food Policy Council isn't the place within the county to kind of initiate that process. If yeah, that
I
so
think this is bigger than the Food Policy Council.
I
right.
guess I think I meant more so like the subcommittee for the Food Policy Council's role in the larger work, right? Of just, but I don't know.
I was thinking the same thing, Rachel, of like, well, like it's so helpful to know the things that we know from the survey that you all did. And it's like, could we extrapolate from that data a little bit from that crisis to say like, hey, when we have cuts like this, right? Like cuts to social safety net funding at the federal scale, like what happens to people and how do we see need like adjusting? And then like what kinds of other cuts might be threats here as Shannon was kind of describing? And then like how could we kind of in the same way that like a code blue says like, hey, when we get to this temperature, like these things have to happen. So like, hey, when these kinds of cuts are on the horizon, like we're going to face maybe these kinds of threats. So we better start like, moving the gears. And to my mind, like that's stuff that like a policy group wouldn't necessarily need to implement, but like could start to think about to present to other folks to say like, hey, this is what we know about food security issues when the federal landscape is in flux.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways that's kind of what the purpose of this report that the emergency preparedness team is going to be working with us on is to have exactly that, Bree, to like map out different I'll say kind of like threats or risks, and then what the appropriate responses would need to be and who would need to be involved and that kind of thing. And so I think that's like need to follow back up with Casey and Megan from that team to kind of talk about the next steps and kind of the process for putting that report together. But based on the data from the survey, based on the conversation yesterday, we're going to start to sketch some of that out. And again, I'm not sure on the timeline, but maybe that's something we could have them come in, whether it's our March or April leadership team meeting, and they could come and kind of share where they are in that process and something that we could talk about. I think it's something we'll probably continue to engage like the pantry network around, as we have I don't know, drafts or kind of just ideas that are taking a little bit more shape. That will continue to engage those partners, but it's something that we can, as the leadership team, can also provide feedback and be kind of an active part of developing that plan, that report.
I think that seems really helpful. The question that I had was just I wonder if so you said that from the survey, only 2 pantries had to turn folks away. But do you have data on like was there a response of like we had to give out less food to meet demand, or was it Like, did that happen? Why are you laughing?
That because that question was asked, the exact same question was asked yesterday, and an acknowledgement that like the asking the question, did you turn people away, missed, the opportunity, or not the opportunity, but missed the fact that pantries may have reduced the amount of food that they gave out to people. So that's we didn't ask that in the survey, but yeah, it was just laughing because it was again the exact same question that that was asked yesterday. Great minds, great minds think alike.
Well, every survey, you're like, well, in the next one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I had asked at one point during one of the meetings if the pantries had to give out less, and they said no, but I don't know.
And like Shannon, you would know this, Carla too, but like I feel like our local pantry was like, we're going to cut back a little bit so to make sure we have enough for everyone. And so it's like these anecdotal things, and it would be helpful to know like to what extent were more people relying on less food.
Yeah. I like Shannon's idea too of like the code blue that comes out. It would be great if we had something that came out, and I would think that would be more from the health department and that group. That something would go out and say, hey, we're at a level in this county where people are going to start needing more, and then look for some kind of response, from the community, you would hope.
I think what was helpful yesterday is because at Share we had pantries saying that they were changing up their distributions. And yes, they were starting to get low, but it also was at a time where we at Share had not been able to build up our reserve, so to speak. And so it was kind of like this snowball effect of everything happening with the budget being delayed and the SNAP and being cut, and like everything happened at the same time. But we didn't have sites that told us that they needed to turn away folk because we've had food and we prepared emergency boxes for such a time as that. So we didn't have anyone reaching out to us to say they did not have food or they had to turn folk away. But what we did here is that they were adjusting as the weeks went on. They were adjusting what they were giving out just so that they would not run out. So I always think it's interesting because we also reach out to quote unquote non-partners. So I always think it's interesting when we hear something different on these surveys. But I think it would be a great idea to have, like Shannon said, to have some kind of team response like the Code Blue for resources, especially for, um, for the food resources, especially. I think that the housing, like everything that's still happening with the SNAP benefits and all of the reporting that is needed, for as much as we feel like we're coming out of some of that because the benefits weren't just cut, but all the reporting is having a snowball effect on our housing as the case managers in the county are finding out. The uptick in people losing housing and being evicted type thing is increasing, which means they're definitely food insecure. And with the utilities going up, I think we need to continue to plan in a way, even if the government doesn't just cut, because cuts are happening. So I think there has to be some sort of emergency code blue type response that people are being called on to respond to. At Share, we have not received any kind of we haven't been asked to be a part of a conversation. We haven't been asked to be part of a work group or anything. And we have an overflow right now based off of when the money did come through and when the food did come through, we have lost a whole quarter and a half in having to rid of all of it by the end of June. So if there are needs out there, I'm not hearing about them specifically from our county or specifically from whether it's partners or non-partners, because we have been in a position these last few months to provide over and above what is needed. And I think we're in a unique situation right now because of it. But at Share, we're trying to plan for the next budget impasse that's possibly could be happening again in July or June, July. So I say all of that to say, like, we're here, but no one's asking us questions, or no one's bringing me to the table, or no, we're not getting any questions or information or invites or any of those things. In the meeting yesterday, I didn't have a lot to say because I'm like, we're here, we have space, only a few people, like Carol, like Garden of Health, Manna, and Harder, like there's a few pantries that are utilizing the space. And now would be the time because we are filling up our own space to be fully operational in Monco. So just putting that all out there.
Carla, yesterday was the first sort of round of this, and we sent out a special invite to all the CEOs of the food banks just to give them a heads up about this, but they'll
Yeah,
definitely
George was there.
Yeah, George was there. It was wonderful to have him there. Well, there definitely will be follow-ups and more conversations that you all will be a part of. But that was really the initial conversation.
Yeah, I think I'm speaking a lot too about just county conversations. We're considered the lead agency, but we haven't been asked or talked to.
Yeah, I mean, I think as Shannon said, this is, kind of where we're starting the conversation now with this kind of resource planning. So, again, I'm sure we'll kind of be in touch as the conversation continues to evolve and have a clear idea of what the questions are. Again, as we talked about yesterday, I think how do we identify when there are resource constraints, food, space, and volunteers. How do we identify the areas where they're most needed, and develop plans for, again, as was discussed yesterday, kind of collaboration and moving those through the network. So, I think, as you mentioned, the warehouse will be like a critical part of that planning process. But yeah, it's good to know. Just as you were mentioning, I assume you're talking about the state food purchase program funds. Because those were held up for so long, that now you have the same amount of money that you would have had over the course of the year to spend over whatever it is, 8 or 9 months. I guess at this point, there's 4 months left till June, and that if the planning for a future state impasse, so you don't kind of end up in the same lull in end of summer, early fall, is good to know as well. All right, yeah, Shannon, and let's see if we have any other comments, any last comments on this. But yeah, go ahead.
I know there was a lot of energy in this group about sort of this intersectional lens that Anne brought up, and looking at sort of how we can do sort of interdepartmental maybe planning, or planning with other folks serving vulnerable populations. I'm wondering sort of what are next steps. Maybe a few of us could meet and sort of figure out who needs to be reached out to at the county and help with those outreaches with, I don't know if that's the deputy COO or if that's the commissioners or someone in the county's office. Does it make sense for a few of us to convene to sort of start moving that ball forward, or is there something else that the counties that you all who are working at the county think make more sense as to how to move that ball forward? Because I know there's a lot of energy in this group for it, and I mean, I'm happy to help. I think you are too.
Yeah, my sense is, I can start the conversation internally, and I'm not clear myself on who exactly within the county would need to or would want to be a part of the conversations, but that um, yeah, that starting again, I think me asking Christina is kind of the first place to start, and then kind of based on there, we can see again who else within the county and what other external folks, and also if it's a thing that like moves out of the county, if it's something that like people, like external organizations want to lead a resilience planning process, and then the county can be engaged as appropriate. That's another pathway, I guess. But if we want it to be a kind of county-led process, then yeah, then I'm kind of happy to start that conversation internally. So yeah, I'll report back once I have, again, I'll ask the question, start the conversation, and then can keep you all updated depending on, or just on what I hear back. All right. Anyone have any other questions, comments, reflections from the Core Community Council meeting, or just the kind of resiliency planning, food security network planning? All right. Okay, so we have a few other kind of discussion topics on our agenda for our last like half hour or so this morning. The first is following up on our new committee poll results. So we had, again, we had put together like a poll for leadership team members to express interest in serving on the executive committee, or on the potentially starting two new committees, one a policy committee, or one a general membership planning committee. So I got responses from about half of the folks on the leadership team. The only two people who indicated they were interested in serving on the executive committee were our current executive committee members, Bree and Shannon. And then the only people who indicated that they would be interested, that no one was really interested in the general membership meeting planning committee. So that's fine. It's been working well enough for kind of me to initiate some of that planning, bring it to the leadership team and discuss so we can continue that process. The only folks who indicated an interest in the policy committee were Anne and Rachel, who are also our like leadership team representatives on our network development working group committee. So my sense, and I think Anne had made a comment to this effect in her survey response, was like, probably can't do policy and network development. Just yeah, given don't want to. Oh, sorry, Nicole. Maybe I didn't catch your response there, but just your comment that you were interested in policy. Bree, you were too. Okay, I guess I don't know. Sorry for my misinterpretation of the results here. So, all right, so maybe there is a little bit more interest in the policy committee, but I think there was a question about kind of whether we want to kind of pursue both, whether or how we would want to pursue both the network development and policy committee, just given the capacity of folks on the leadership team here for that. So I think two things. First, before we kind of open that discussion, I think we're supposed to vote to confirm our executive committee appointments. So again, because no one else indicated an interest there, would like to take a vote on approving Bree and Shannon to continue for, I think we do it every calendar year. So to be our executive committee for 2026. And then after that, we can take a few minutes to think about and talk about how to balance, these network development and policy committees. Yeah, and it's also, if we, I don't feel like we need to come to a resolution on that one today. If we get there, that's great. If not, it's something we can kind of we can come back to if needed. All right, but that being said, let's take a vote. So all those in favor of appointing Bree and Shannon as our executive committee members, raise your hands. All right, I think we got everyone. Thanks, congratulations, Bree and Shannon. Thanks for continuing to serve on the executive committee. It's been great working with you both in that role. All right, so yeah, anyone have kind of initial thoughts about policy and or network development working groups and how to approach kind of both of those interests?
I guess my question is, when will we, at what stage will we feel like the network development group's work is done? I agree that it doesn't make sense to start a new thing, but is this a perpetual committee, or is it something that we established the resource tool and now is that enough? What do you all think about that? Is there more that remains to be done?
I think that we have options, right? Like we could say we've established the resource guide and, again, have some, feel like we have it, the systems in place to keep it running. And, that could be the work of the group and then it, either resolves or is on pause or whatever. As Rachel mentioned, at our last meeting, there was some kind of good conversation and excitement around this idea of oh, well, maybe this group could be a way through which we kind of convene some more informal conversations, almost like a book group kind of thing about food systems topics and, just ways to have other ways of engagement for folks in the council and that, particularly because it was a project that someone else was excited about and was offering to run and to lead. Seemed good to kind of tap into that. There are other projects we've talked about as well that I think would make sense to fall under that committee. Yeah, like a kind of developing a welcome packet for food policy council members. So I guess Jonathan dropped off, but so when we have people who express an interest or want to connect with the council, that there's kind of a succinct way to engage, to show the opportunities to engage and kind of those different pathways. And some of the background and history, right, about the council. And yeah, I think we've talked about a few other ideas that I think would make sense to come out of that committee. Whether, I don't know, Rachel and Anne, curious your thoughts about, yeah, I guess next steps for that group.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said that very well. So I second everything you said. I like, I maybe selfishly am interested in policy, but I think I noted this that I'm not the most experienced in particularly policy work. So I'm happy to, help push that effort forward from in a support role. So I would also I could just be a general member on that team rather than one of our council representatives on that working group. And maybe Anne feels the same way. Anne probably has more experience than I. But what am I trying to say? I think that the working groups, I like this idea that the working groups might have a deadline or an end of date. So end of life. So I'm open to that, I guess.
I keep having this meeting drop. I'm having internet connectivity issues apparently, and that's why I turned off my camera. So I don't entirely know what you said, Sam. Like you said something about my response to the survey, and then I lost you. So I will do whatever you think is best for the group.
Well, the question Bree had asked about like what the end for the network development working group is. And I was saying like we could wrap it up relatively soon, you know, with the resource guide kind of in place. Or, you know, as we talked about at the last meeting, like there are some other ideas and other projects we could kind of pick up and run with from that group. And so that was what we were talking about.
You know, originally I thought the network development group was meant to be the group that like did outreach and grew your audience and tried to recruit sectors of the food system that were underrepresented in your general membership meetings. I think that's a task that's always going to be out there. I think if I recall in my survey response, I expressed interest in the policy group, but I also said that I didn't want to ditch Rachel. And so like whatever, like I also don't want us to spread ourselves too thin. So you know, the more subcommittees we form, I think the more work we're creating for ourselves. So sunsetting some groups and starting up other groups or finding new tasks or whatever. I'm all for it.
Maybe I'll just chime in one other note too, is that you know, speaking for myself, the network development and the farmer development working group that I'm involved in, like those are things I'm particularly passionate about within the food system, right? So I feel like and I think the success of working groups is led by impassioned people in a lot of ways. So if we're not getting a lot of, you know, interest in food policy, I would almost ask like the rest of us, what are you passionate about? Let's form a working group around that, you know, like because it's, you know, we're meeting once a month, like it's there's some work involved. You want to be able to, you want to be excited about showing up. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I'm thinking also kind of to that point, Rachel, that like we've talked about, we haven't had a lot of engagement with network development. You know, it seems like there's a small core group of people that seem passionate and have been showing up, but the other, you know, the other working groups have more of that, people who seem to be more engaged. So and I have had a handful of people reach out recently, and say like, we want to do more policy and advocacy work. Like what work is happening? What can we connect with? So that, you know, those are factors, I guess, in terms of the balance of things. I think I appreciate, Anne, that you are like, I'll do whatever, I'll do whatever you think. But I think that's you know, as you are mentioning the kind of initial purpose of the network development working group, I think it's true that that's something we kind of we ended up steering away from, you know, through the survey. But I think it's something that there's always going to be a need for, like assessing our membership and thinking about ways to grow and expand and you know, reach people that we aren't reaching. So yeah, to me, that's the challenge of this this situation is like there's either working group I think would be really valuable towards, you know, kind of the growth and development of the council as a whole. But with limited capacity, like which do we prioritize? Yeah, and I'm not sure that I have a leaning. So yeah, curious if others feel like they have a leaning. But Bree, were you gonna add something?
Yeah, well, one thing that I was thinking about is some other boards that I'm on. We have they have different titles, but it's like a nominations committee or a group that convenes for a shorter duration of time, right? And their primary focus is to bring in diverse and qualified people whose voices would be useful in the group, right? And they do this when it's time to bring new members in. And so I'm thinking about like Anne's comments about what she thought the initial purpose of the network development group was. And if we think that that is the role that really needs to be served of like constantly trying to bring in people who aren't a part of this group, either to our leadership team or to meetings, like could we have a sort of like um, it, it it operates only for a short period of time, like when we're actively recruiting new members, and we say like, okay, who's in our group and who isn't, and how could we diversify and expand our reach, and that might make it an easier lift if we think that's the primary benefit of a network developing group, which I'm also hearing is maybe not the case because there are all kinds of other good things coming out of it. Sorry, that comment was a lot to say, like maybe it doesn't have to run all the time.
Um, yeah, no, I appreciate that's another kind of way to approach it. I wonder if it would be helpful to kind of map out or just list out like some of the different projects that and roles that each of these different working groups could serve. And then we could reflect on that a little bit and think about, again, it just seems like a kind of strategy question, for the for the kind of the council as a whole right now. Like, do we want to focus our energy on the things Bree was talking about, the other projects that could come out of the network development committee, or the policy piece? And maybe looking at that also gives us uh, more of a sense of, as Bree was suggesting, like, okay, well, maybe it's these 2 or 3 months we focus on this piece for network development. That's kind of where that would go, and then otherwise, kind of focus on get the policy committee, the policy working group started. Does that seem like it would be helpful? I don't know. What do folks think?
Yeah, it would be helpful for me, at least.
Well, sorry, I promise I'm going to stop commenting really soon. But another thought is Nicole said she was interested in policy. I'm interested in policy, and we don't need to uproot Anne and Rachel from network development. Like they are also two people. So we could just say like, Anne and Rachel, stay put and engage if you would like. But if we have two people, sorry, Nicole, I just volunteered you for a thing and maybe you don't want to. I'm really good at that. But maybe if we have two people who want to do policy, then we could kind of spearhead that effort and other people can jump in if they so choose. We can open it up to the general membership as well.
I like that thought.
I like the idea that our whole planning was around Anne and Rachel. We're like, how can we get them in? They are critical.
I think that's a good idea, Bray. I have zero knowledge of like policy and planning stuff, so I wouldn't be much help, but I think that's a good idea.
It might be an interesting, like, Rachel, I heard you say a sort of similar thing, like it's an interest but not a skill, and like that could be an interesting thing to be able to offer is like, how can we engage with policy? We are the Food Policy Council. Like, could we demystify this a little bit so that people feel like they have a voice and understanding of policy so that they can, outside of the Food Policy Council, feel like they understand how to be policy advocates or at least just have a sense of what's happening.
Yeah, that sounds great. Um, okay, well, it sounds like then Nicole and Bree, thanks for offering to start our policy working group. And yeah, I guess I'll maybe let you two try and coordinate. And I think we had some thoughts about what that working group could look like that I'll, send over, and we can kind of figure out what the next steps for getting that started are. And maybe again, it's a question we come back to of uh, as that group gets started. Just thinking about Anne's comment about like not spreading ourselves too thin, like maybe it does still make sense to sunset network development or have it, change the timing or frequency or something like that. Um, um, yeah. All right. Anyone else have other thoughts on this kind of question? All right, great. Well, yeah, again, I will follow up Bree and Nicole on the policy working group. Okay. All right, so update on the general membership meeting planning. I had in the agenda that I sent, I had linked to a document where I had some kind of like rough ideas for, what our next general membership meeting would look like. We're looking at kind of end of March as a date for that, and looking in the Pottstown area just to kind of continue some rotation around the county. And then last week was on a call with the Pottstown Area Food Collaborative, and they were planning a membership meeting for the collaborative members around the end of March, which would be in Pottstown. And I was like, hey, why don't we just combine these, and it can be a Food Policy Council and Pottstown Area Food Collaborative joint membership meeting. So we met Wednesday, I think, to talk about what that meeting would look like and go over the plans. And so the proposal is for the meeting to be Friday, March 20th. The Pottstown Area YWCA has offered to host. They've offered to host and provide mocktails and charcuterie boards for the event, which is great. So we were thinking about like 1 to 1:30 as kind of informal networking mocktail hour. And then the meeting would be 1:30 to 3. And there'd be kind of updates, overview of the collaborative and of the Food Policy Council, and then kind of going into breakout groups. Essentially based on the outcomes that the collaborative has identified, their kind of priorities for the year. There's a lot of alignment between the outcomes for the collaborative and like our working groups and our priorities. So I think that it would work pretty well to, in those, for example, they have an outcome focused around food production. And so, we'll be talking about a lot of things that really connect with kind of like our farmer mentorship program. One of their outcomes is focused around policy and advocacy. So our newly established policy working group, like we can be in conversation kind of together there. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist for the meeting that we had talked about. Anyone have any kind of questions or concerns about this joint meeting?
Sorry, Sam, can you repeat the date of that?
Sure, yeah, March 20th, Friday, March 20th. See, Vernon, I see you talk. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Who makes up the Pottstown Food Collaborative?
Let's see. So It has been housed under the Pottstown Regional Community Foundation, or Pottstown. Yeah, I can't remember I know they just changed their name.
Yeah,
But
that's it, Pottstown
organization.
Regional Community Foundation. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So the other organizations, Trellis for Tomorrow, the Pottstown Cluster, the YWCA, Tower Health. Um, let's see. Bree, can you? I know you're new to the group, but
Yeah, I'm looking at the membership list right now. I'm actually totally cheating. It's like Hobart's Run, Mosaic, Pottstown Farm, Green Allies. Yeah, Mon is part. Yeah, or signage just became a part. Um, yeah, so it's here. Can I put a link in the chat for you all? That's the membership organizations. Some local stores too, Delia and Dean.
I'm guessing based on your question, Vernon, if you like not engage with the group at all.
Oh, you're not making sound.
You said no, you haven't.
No, I haven't.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that seems, I mean, it's a kind of separate conversation about the collaborative and how they work, but it seems like that's in my mind one of the goals for this joint meeting is so that if there are folks in Pottstown who haven't been a part of the collaborative that can make sure that we can make those connections.
Yeah, because based on the list that Bree just shared, there are some critical components that are missing there. Salvation Army has a very active food pantry. Mission First is a group that we support that pretty much caters to the homeless from a food insecurity perspective. And then, of course, Bethel, we're probably the second largest food pantry in Pottstown. And I'm not sure what Hobart's Run. I collaborate with Hobart's Run on a weekly basis, but I'm not sure what role they play when it comes to food um, um, pantry, food insecurity, food policy. Not sure what they're doing. Um, and I think you mentioned Tower Health, and I sit on the board of trustees for Tower Health, and I'm not even aware of the collaborative. I've heard of it, but I'm not involved. And for Pottstown, that list seems strange.
Do you want to? Oh, I can't wait for you to. Okay, let's talk more because I think your voice would be so important. It's been around for a little while, but I think we don't have a Sam to kind of like be the heart. And so it's all these people kind of putting in effort here and there. And I think if you can see people that are missing, part of the goal of the meeting is to bring in people and to like build these networks. So that is super helpful, Vernon. Yeah. And I would just say like any omissions are accidental and not intentional, and it would be great to continue to grow. So yeah, could really use your expertise.
Yeah, Bree just recently became what part of the executive team of the collaborative, is that right? The right
I
term
just
for it?
became the co-chair of the steering committee, along with someone from the YWCA. And so I'm just getting to know them too, but I live in Pottstown, so it felt like a good thing to join in on. But it does seem like we've really good like guiding values, and there's like a really good heart there, and it just needs a bigger network. So
Yeah.
Vernon, I'm gonna like link arms with you at the meeting. Say,
All
who
right,
can you
sounds good.
introduce me to?
Okay.
Great. Um, All right, well, I think we're going to get the registration out for the meeting like early next week. It's only 3 weeks away at this point. So we'll get that out soon, and hopefully all will be able to make it there. All right, we are at time here. It's 11:30. We didn't get to our discussion topics. None of them were that critical, so we can save them for next month, or do some follow-up via email. But one announcement I wanted to share before we close: the Pennsylvania Food Policy Council has been working on a statewide food action plan, and they are planning to do a few listening sessions throughout the state to get feedback on the plan. And so I've been working with Don Plummer there to coordinate hosting one of those here in Montgomery County. The date we're looking at is Monday, March 16th. We're still trying to finalize the location, so I'll let you all know once we have that confirmed. But yeah, hopefully, I think it will probably be the morning of the 16th. So hold it on your calendars if you can. And again, I'll send more info once all the logistics are confirmed. Does anyone else have any announcements, things that they want to share before we wrap up?
I just really quickly wanted to update the group that we've started the process for the sustainability plan, and food systems is called out as being, an important part of it. So we're working with Sam to kind of integrate some of the work from the Food Policy Council into the sustainability plan as well. So I just wanted to flag that for folks.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. I'm excited to it was great to go to the last sustainability committee meeting, and excited to chat more about kind of how we integrate these things. Any other announcements, closing thoughts? All right. Well, thanks for your time, everyone, this morning. Hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, have a great weekend, everyone.